In the news today, Olympian Usain Bolt has won his third consecutive gold medal, taking out the win in the 100-metre sprint in 9.81 seconds. He tweeted following the victory for Jamaica to stand up and that this was for his people. A man who was jailed for bashing Sam Newman in 1997 has been repeatedly stabbed. Mick Hamill was attacked in broad daylight in St Kilda yesterday afternoon. It's believed Hamill has links to underworld figures. And climate change denier Malcolm Roberts squared off with Professor Brian Cox over the matter last night. The two debated over climate change on ABC's Q&A, resulting in some captivating television. And that's the headlines for today.
Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Upstart Live for our second season. That was Sam Martin with the headlines. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. from the studios at La Trobe University. It's the 16th of August. I'm your host, Naim Kurt, and joining me in the studio as co-host is the lovely Rachel Roberts, who is filling in for our regular host, Alana Mazouk, who has been suffering from a mammoth case of the flu. I believe it's been almost 11 days now, so we wish her a speedy recovery. Rachel, it's been a big break between seasons. How did you spend your time?
Well, on the holidays, I slept a lot, and that was lovely. And then I watched a lot of horror movies from the 80s. And then we all got prepared for Open Day, which was just 2 weeks ago. And Matt and I got to host in the morning, and that was a lot of fun.
And I hear the team did very well that day, representing La Trobe and the media department here as well.
Absolutely. What did you do?
What did I do? Geez, I spent mine over in Europe, so I had a lovely trip over in Europe, felt very relaxed and enjoyed the European summer, went to a lot of football matches for the Euro tournament. Saw a bit of drama as well in Turkey. There was a military coup there with my family whilst we were there. So a lot of tanks in the street, a lot of military jets flying overhead. But I came back alive and well, which is all good. Now, we do have a very big show coming up. Our reporters have been working very hard sourcing the biggest and best in the breaking news that has been happening over the past few weeks. What do we have coming up on the show, Rachel?
Well, first off, we are going to welcome Carl and Josh to tell us all about the Olympics.
Kyle, Josh, what's been happening?
Heaps. There's been 100-metre freestyle medals for Australia. There's been a lot of disappointment for Australia also.
Where's Australia sitting on the medal tally at the moment?
I think they're ninth at the moment. They've got 6 gold medals.
Are we going to make top 5?
I don't think we'll make top 5.
Very unlikely, I'd say. Yeah.
Great Britain are very strong in the velodrome. There's a lot of velodrome events at the moment, and Australia traditionally very poor in athletics. So, yeah, probably about 9.
And how's Amy Mears going as well?
Amy Mears? I'm not too sure. I haven't talked to her recently, but I'm sure she's fine. She's enjoying it over there.
All right.
So, yeah, with me at the moment, we've got Josh Shonafinger. How are you going, Josh?
Pretty good, thanks, mate. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. So, as we said, we've got Kyle Chalmers. It's just won the 100-metre freestyle final. I think we've got a clip of that somewhere. We're going to play that now, or as we were speaking about before that clip, from an Australian perspective, it's been a little bit up and down. Some examples of the up and down. We've had the hockey this morning. Hockey's been very disappointing with both men and women knocked out in quarterfinals this morning. The men to the Netherlands and the women to New Zealand. Josh, we've got some. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess a lot of pundits were expecting at least medals for both those sides. Both pretty strong in the hockey, and especially with Australia in the men's, the Kookaburras. They had a great tournament at the Champions Trophy in Great Britain earlier this year, and they won that. And to come away with nothing, they'll be pretty disappointed. Yeah,
they've won the last 2 World Cups, the Australian men's, and to bomb out in their worst finish in an Olympic event's not really that good. I think there'll be a bit of an investigation into what went wrong there. But the women, they've finished the same 5th for the last couple of years, so they were in good form coming in, but they just sort of dropped off. I have a lot of expectation for hockey in Australia. It's sort of something I want to get, see medals being won in hockey.
Yeah.
But there's been a medal in the golf recently too, I've heard.
Yeah, one of the Aussies who probably flew under the radar a bit, Marcus Fraser, won a bronze medal behind Justin Rose of Great Britain and Henrik Stenson of Sweden in the golf. And it was the first time golfers returned at the Olympics since 1904, the St. Louis Games.
The St. Louis Games.
Can you believe that?
So who won it then, Josh?
I can't tell you
Can't
that.
tell
I'm
me?
sorry, but I can tell you that those Olympic Games went for 4.5 months. So
4.5 months.
so
That
these-
is a lot of condoms in the athletes' village. But anyway, so the Australian was ranked 86, so to
He
get
was.
a bronze medal, that's a pretty good result.
Yeah,
I
behind
think.
some really good golfers. So hopefully we can see Marcus come along and contest some of the PGA events later in the year.
Yeah, so he's in the European Tour at the moment, jump across into the USA where the big money is.
That'd be great.
Speaking of USA, we've got Michael Phelps has wrapped up his Olympic career with his 23rd gold medal.
Boy, oh boy.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? If Michael Phelps was a country, he'd be 31st on the all-time medal
That's
tally.
mind-blowing, isn't it?
It's absolutely mind-blowing. I think we've got a bit of footage of Michael now just finishing up. So that's Michael Phelps just getting his 23rd gold medal there. So it's a bit of debate whether he's the greatest Olympian of all time. The next day, Usain Bolt comes out and wins his third straight 100-metre sprint. So I reckon that'll be a debate for the ages.
No
I
man's
reckon.
ever done that either.
No
so,
man's ever done that. He's
uh,
going for the triple, which I think it's going to happen maybe tomorrow morning.
The
their time.
200.
Yeah, the 200. So
Is he your bet for the 200?
he'll probably win it. He
Yeah.
just, well, you'll watch him when he does the 100-metre sprint. It takes him 60 metres to get going, and the last 40 is ridiculous. So he's got 140 to be ridiculous.
He's only just clicked into gear, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's just clicked into gear, and they've got the rest of Asafa Powell and the other Jamaicans for the 4x100, so they'll be pushing probably 40 seconds there for another tilt at a world record, I
time,
reckon,
I'd
again.
think, yeah.
So I've been Kyle Humphries, and you're Josh Shonafinger. We'll leave you now with Usain Bolt in his record-breaking run.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for that, Carl and Josh, keeping us all nice and informed. You're listening to Upstart Live. This is The Wrap. It is now at 8 minutes past 2, and we're broadcasting live from La Trobe University every Tuesday at 2. Now, if you ever want to relive the highlights from this show, you can always just visit us on upstart.net. And I do believe we now have Matt here to tell us all about the upcoming music festivals as we head into spring and festival season.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome, Matt.
Oh, thank you. All right, this is going to have a big pitch. Dust off your favourite singlets, prepare your best flower crowns, crack a beer and get your deck chair. It's time for the best time of the year, festival season. Yes, festival season. A bit of an anticlimactic moment. Anyways, let's have a look at Australia's 3 biggest festivals running over New Year's as they pull out all the stops to get your hard-earned cash. Starting with the Travelling Falls Festival, appearing in Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales and Perth. They have announced a huge headline act in actor-rapper Donald Glover, aka the one and only Childish Gambino.
Girl, what's your problem? 'Cause I know it's hard sometimes. Maybe just give it some time.
He's really a one-of-a-kind artist, and with this level of excitement he has gathered without even having an album out at this stage, when he comes out, he's going to have his new album, Feroz, which is coming out in September, so watch out. The country waits with bated breath as we get the rest of the Falls Festival lineup will be released, so keep your eye out for tickets. Moving on to Beyond the Valley, which takes place in Gippsland, Victoria. This one really feels like it's trying to one-up Falls Festival, as the entire lineup is massive and they have found someone to combat Childish Gambino, the one and only Chance the Rapper.
I got my city doing front flips. When every father mayor rapper jump ship. I guess that's why they call it where I stay.
The acts don't stop there, as others that are announced include Sticky Fingers, Hermitude, Alex Lely, June Rats and Goldlink, and many more that have been announced and will be announced later. But, you know, for some people, the 3 or 4 days in dust and dirt isn't exactly their cup of tea. But that's all right. So all your festival needs have been covered with the announcement of New Year's Eve on the Hill in Victoria. It's a one-day festival which has the Pierce Brothers, Dylan Joel, Benny's and Tats Sutra, including plenty more.
It was my fault, and I know I don't deserve love. It's my fault, and I know I don't deserve love.
So originally that was meant to be the end of our festival lineups, but literally this morning before I've come on air, a new one has been announced, the Festival of the Sun lineup, which is in Port Macquarie, that has Seth Sentry, Gang of Youths and Smith Street Band.
So there's even more festivals being announced than we've had before. So yes. So guys, have any of you been to any festivals before?
These ones, mate. But which ones are you looking forward to, right? You've named 4 of them here.
Mate,
are we going to see you at all of them?
Oh, I wish. If there was a time turner possible, I would definitely be at every one. But I think I've got to do Falls Festival again. We did it last year, so doing it again will be.
I did it last year too. Were you at Lawn or what was supposed to be Lawn?
Yes, I was at what was supposed to be Lawn.
And then where did you end up? At the other place where they do...
yeah, it was in Geelong because they had to change it for the bushfires.
Yeah, I always go to Tasmania. I don't know why, but I just always get on the plane and do the camping thing there. Just it's a bit quieter there.
That's it. That's a very interesting way to do it.
It is.
And do you take the camping gear with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can take that on and carry on? Or
Well, my father is a sea captain. So we generally just jump on the ship.
Was this your first...
Semi-illegal.
Was this your first Falls Festival this year, or have you been to a
absolutely
couple?
not. I go almost every year.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
When do you take your mind back to the first one you went to? How prepared were you for that festival?
That was Queenscliff Music Festival. Was the first festival I ever went to. I was not prepared at all. I had such a good time. It was just beyond anything I could have expected. It was the first time I saw this band, King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, who then became my favourite band. It was just amazing. I loved it every second.
See, I went to Falls Festivals my first last year, and my God, we were underprepared. So, for past me, I have prepared a festival survival guide to help people like me and you all those years ago at Queenscliff who need to have their first festival experience and know what's going on. So 3-step rules.
Fire away, Matt. Tell us what it is.
Number 1, be prepared. Tickets come out on sale and they literally will go out the day that they come out, they will sell out. So make sure you've got all your friends prepared to get those tickets.
So we need to be sitting on the computer there, tapping away, refreshing.
Absolutely. Every minute, the minute it goes on at 9 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
There's a few steps to being prepared. Bringing food. If you believe this or not, last year all we brought was a loaf of bread and 2 cans of soup for 4 days.
Diet of champions.
Yes, that was an incredibly bad idea, and we definitely should have become more prepared. And most importantly in the be prepared section, shade and sunscreen. 4 days in the 40-degree heat without any shade will kill you. Make sure you bring some sunscreen and shade.
I think they're all pretty sensible tips right there.
Number 2 on the survival guide, make sure you research the music, get artsy, and have a great time, because there is so many other things at festivals that aren't exactly the acts. So you'll go around and you'll see at Lawn, for example, or what should have been Lawn, they have an arts and crafts. At Beyond the Valley, they have a food tasting section. So it's not all about the music anymore. There's so many other things that you can actually do at the festival. So make sure you're researching and knowing what's on. And number 3 is just to be a good person and make sure you're looking out for one another. There's so much going on everywhere and everybody's, doing whatever. So just make sure you've got your mates' backs and you know how everyone is and making sure they're okay.
Very important.
Very important, mate. No one likes a festival grouch.
No one at all. Make sure you have it's important to have the good friends, the ones that aren't going to be dead in a bush, but the ones that do like to have a good time.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the perfect
it.
mix.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for that roundup there. And now we're going into the political roundup, but you're listening to Upstart Live. We're broadcasting live from La Trobe University every Tuesday at 2 p.m. It's now 14 minutes past 2. And on to the more serious matters. Let's talk about the world of politics. What stories do we have coming up in the political world that's been happening this week, Rachel?
Well, this week, I think the biggest and most talked about story is the census fail.
The census fail on Tuesday.
Fail.
Did you get your census in on time?
I did not get it in on time, not on the day, but I did it the day after as soon as it came back online.
So you're not expecting the $160 fine?
Gosh, no.
I'd hope not.
I do believe it closes on the 23rd, so if you haven't done it already, get on it.
The government has been at pains to say that if you don't get it in on that Tuesday, there is up until September, so they won't be fining us just yet, which thankfully.
Yes, but there has been a lot of speculation about what actually went wrong and who's responsible for the census fail. There has been blame directed at foreign hackers and the government for exporting the things to the IBM and, of course, the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
We should be clear that there was a website set up where people were supposed to log in with their details, present their census online, and it was meant to be a cheaper alternative to the way censuses have been done before, save money in the census and save money for the government's bottom line on their budget. But as it happened, we had about 7 million people trying to log in at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, and what appears to be also some foreign hackers as well who might have tried to do what they call a DDoS, or denial of service attack, and using bots from other countries to overwhelm the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we also have Small Business Minister Michael McCormack, who was the minister responsible for the census, and he promises us the census data was safe. And let's just hear from him real quick.
This was not an attack, nor was it a hack, but rather it was an attempt to frustrate the collection of Australian Bureau of Statistics census data. ABS census security was not compromised, and no data was lost. At no stage during these incidents last night was any information obtained, nor was there any entry into the system.
So McCormack does assure us that it was not a hack. In fact, our data is safe, and we should all just relax, apparently. Of course, Michael McCormack, however, has had a bit of a stressful time with everything. His own website was hacked and then taken down, maybe as a vengeance for the census. Who knows? And there are actually people calling for his resignation.
What do we make from all of this politically? Do you think there will be any repercussions for the government, the federal government in charge? Because we should note as well that it hasn't been organised very well, this census, let's be honest. I mean, there wasn't a head of the ABS for about 12 months beforehand. It was only recently this year that they appointed one. We've gone through 3 different ministers, I think Matthias Cormann, Kelly O'Dwyer and somebody else. All 3 of them have had different stints in charge of the portfolio leading up to the census, and there just hasn't been a clear run into it.
There really hasn't. There also hasn't been a lot of faith, I think. A lot of people were already nervous about doing their census online for the first time, and I just think this is...
And there's been changes as well where they're saying they're going to keep our data for much longer, link it to individual profiles so they can keep track of people over the years and see how the census statistics are changing. Of course, that worries people. It concerns people out in the community that information could be used for nefarious circumstances.
Yeah, of course. There's been lots of debate, even at just my house, about how we feel about it and whether we're pro or not so pro census anymore.
It was the same at our house. I was filling it out for my father, and I said, "What's your salary earning?" He said, "I'm not going to tell him what my salary is. You know, you don't know if it's going to be taken back and used in other different areas of government bureaus, and then you could get in trouble down the track." I mean, he just said, "Put down the smallest amount possible." And I said to my dad, I said, "Look, geez, that's not
lying.
That's lying, but it's what happens. People, you know, a lot of personal questions, knowing how many people you are, who you're dating, whatever, where you live. It's, for some people, it can be a bit too much, I think."
For sure.
And one of the other big stories this week has been the release of the Nauru files. So last week, a cache of 2,000 incident reports from inside the Nauru Detention Centre was leaked to The Guardian Australia, which revealed concerning reports of abuse of children in Australian off-shared detention facilities. The files have painted a picture of routine dysfunction and cruelty from within the centre, with reports detailing numerous incidents of assaults, sexual abuse, self-harm attempts and child abuse endured by asylum seekers being held within the processing centre. All up, The Guardian's analysis of the files revealed that children were vastly overrepresented in the reports, with more than 51% of the 2,000 reports involving children, even though only 18% of the population are children in detention. Now, Peter Dutton, the Australian Immigration Minister, had this to say about the reports last week on the 7:30 report.
There are some that are legitimate, and there are others that aren't, and others that have been found not to be substantiated. I think it's also important to recognise that of the 2,000 reports, many...
Now, Rachel, this comes just after the federal government has announced a royal commission into children being held within juvenile detention facilities in Northern Territory after that shocking report on Four Corners, which I think shocked everyone within the nation. And you know, we saw those harrowing images of children being strapped alone in chairs and left in isolation with masks put over their faces. And in light of all of these allegations, do you think we have a cultural problem in the way we treating people who are kept in detention. We've got this stuff happening in Nauru now, these reports, this other stuff in Northern Territory.
I absolutely do. And I don't think it's just cultural. I think it's historical. Because you know what? I actually wasn't shocked. Because, you know, in the 80s, we had John Pat, who was murdered by police officers. And then we had a Royal Commission in 1989. And then they made all these recommendations and nothing happened. And now we're facing the same problems. And Lee Sales was actually asking Peter Dutton after all these leaks, are we going to have a Royal Commission into the way we treat our asylum seekers? Because that's what we did for Don Vale. And he avoided the question quite expertly. But I just don't even know if Royal Commissions are going to do anything. And I don't know why. I don't know why people aren't more outraged, maybe. I'm not sure what we can do.
It's just shocking, I think, for anyone who has a heart out there to hear all of these stories that have been happening. And
just out of sight, out of mind. I guess if people are in detention, maybe the public just comforts themselves in thinking like, oh, they must have done something wrong, which isn't the case most of the time.
And we did have one more story just quickly that happened on Sunday where far-right protesters in Gosford interrupted an Anglican church's service on Sunday to protest what the group describes as the Muslim invasion of Australia. As part of the protest, the group set up prayer mats and blasted noise from the Quran over the congregation. Do we have a grab for that?
No, we don't. We do have some photos, though, because as you can see, it's a bit ridiculous. This happened yesterday. Looking pretty silly, guys.
Now, a lot of this group have a lot of pictures of Pauline Hanson on their Facebook pages, and people have been linking them to her. But Pauline Hanson, of course, overnight has distanced herself as far away as possible from it. But this has all come out from a push by the crossbench senators to overhaul the Racial Discrimination Act. Now, that was Tony Abbott was leading that charge. We know that David Leyonhjelm and Cory Bernardi as well are also against this. I'm wondering, do you think the removal of 18C and this push to get rid of the Racial Discrimination Act and open up more freedom of speech, do you think that's playing any part in giving the confidence to these groups out there to go out and protest more? Are they feeling more emboldened in this political climate where far-right kind of nationalism seems to be more acceptable?
I feel like absolutely. I think acts like these is probably why we should need 18C, but the fact that Parliament is actually discussing removing it or discussing changing it, I think does definitely embolden people to just take it to the streets and take it a bit more seriously than they might not otherwise do.
And it's not just the issue in Australia. Well, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in America. We see that with the Trump, with the presidential elections. So
yeah, things are getting pretty scary right now.
Yeah, pretty scary, I guess. But on to another story now. This is Upstart Live. What are we at? We're at 23 minutes past 2. You're listening to Upstart Live, broadcasting live from Latrobe every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we now have a story from Jake Kohler about the same-sex marriage plebiscite. Now, the same-sex marriage has been on the political agenda in Australia for several years as part of the broader debate about the legal recognition of same-sex marriage. The federal government has proposed a plebiscite to gauge the population's views on same-sex marriage. But with a recognised 65% of Australians supporting marriage equality, many are wondering whether this is simply a waste of time and money. In this story, our reporter Jake Kohler, in conjunction with Charlotte Egan-Schultz and the Bundoora News Network, report to tell us more.
The issue of marriage equality in Australia has escalated over the past year, and with it, the debate over whether it should be left to Parliament or put to a public vote, a plebiscite. The holding of a plebiscite would give the people of Australia the opportunity to have their say on same-sex marriage. Although the plan to hold one is not ideal to many people of the LGBTIQ community.
Parliament doesn't need a plebiscite to know that more than 65% of Australians already support same-sex marriage.
Tim Peppard of Marriage Equality Australia is just one of the plebiscite's many critics.
The financial cost to the Australian taxpayer is a complete waste of money.
The upside of having a plebiscite is to really see what people really think.
Victorian Senate candidate for the Australian Christian Party, Vicky Jansen, is confident in the decision for a public vote.
Because there are so many lobby groups and there is so much political activism, what does the average person really think? So I think a plebiscite is helpful in determining that and should really guide the politicians.
Dr. Kate Ford, manager for Drummond Street Services Queer Space program, has concerns for mental health within the community.
the question of their own place in the world is at stake. Yeah? People are questioning their right to have really basic fundamental rights that other people have. And for young people, that is very, very confusing and threatening.
The cost involved in the process also has many of the public coming out against a plebiscite.
I don't think it's necessary. I think they should just pass it without wasting all that money.
Sounds like a bit of a waste of money, to be honest.
I believe it's bloody ridiculous and that they should just legalise gay marriage entirely.
This has been Charlotte Egan-Schultz reporting for Bandura Network News.
You're listening to Upstart Live, broadcasting live from La Trobe University every Tuesday at 2. My name's Rachel Roberts, this is Nam Kurt, and it is now 26 minutes past 2. And joining us now, we have Kat, who is one of our writers from upstart.net. How's the semester been going?
Well, it's been going really good. You know, with Upstart, you kind of just get completely thrown into chaos from the first week. But, yeah, we found a really good rhythm and everything's been going well.
We should probably explain what upstart.net is as well, just for our viewers listening who might not be familiar with it.
Yeah, well, Upstart is an online magazine, and as one of our subjects, we get a group of students together who write articles every week.
It's a student-run publication,
Yeah, it is.
But it's serious journalism that happens as well.
Definitely, because it's put online and it becomes your portfolio of work pretty much.
So what have been the big stories that have been breaking this week that the team has covered?
Well, we've done a 40-hour famine piece. We've done Woolworths being built in Rosanna. And we've covered the Gorman controversy.
Yeah, and we'll start off with the 40-hour famine. That was an article written by yourself, actually.
It was.
Yeah, so what was the story about exactly? I think it was covering different people in the different ways that they've participated in the 40-hour famine. And some people here, we had Dylan saying that he once tried to have a famine by giving up books once before an exam and hoping he could use that as an exam excuse, but he still had to do the exam in the end.
Yeah, definitely. It was sort of just looking at what people can give up if they don't give up food, and if you don't give up food, is it really helping anyone? Is it ethical?
What were some of the other things that people gave up as well?
A lot of technology. A lot of people are giving up their phones for 40 hours. And one girl gave up makeup as well, which was really ridiculous.
Yeah.
Talked about the spirit of the 40-hour famine, but surely as long as you're raising money, it doesn't really matter what you give up, maybe.
Well, yeah, that's what the 40-hour famine organisers have said as well. I guess it all comes down to how much money you can raise. I know about 10 years ago or more, they were really pushing for food to be what was given up so you could experience poverty. But I guess now with, there's medical conditions and there's all sorts of reasons people can't give up food. So having different things you can give up really works.
Have you ever participated in the 40-hour famine before, Kat?
I have. I did when I was in primary school. It's a lot more painful than people realise going without food for 40 hours.
I was curious if you had any idea about where the money actually goes from the 40-hour famine, because we know in the news recently the World Vision has been dealing with some accusations that the funds they've delivered to people in need in Palestine have actually been redirected into military programs run by Hamas. Did you spoken to anyone from World Vision, have any idea where the money from the 40-hour famine will be going to this year?
Well, we did. We got a very blanket answer with it's just going to those in need. It's going to fight poverty and to help women's education, but they didn't really give a specific country.
Yeah, and might be worth investigating that further in another story, I think. Yeah. And we had an awesome story from Marie as well, Trefovic, who gave an excellent local story on the planning zoning in Rosanna.
Woolworths planning to move into Rosanna, and Rosanna was concerned about it affecting local business. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone who has a local business in Rosanna is really, really concerned because, if a Woolworths comes in, and Rosanna's a very small community, so if a Woolworths comes in, it's obviously going to take away from local businesses, the placement of it as well. It's right near Rosanna IGA, and of course they're worried about what's going to happen to their future.
I feel like getting a big supermarket, it's kind of a bit of a tale as old as time. I feel like this was kind of a thing that people were talking about, their villages having their quaint little charm ruined, 10 years ago. So yeah. Rosanna's actually done quite well to hold on, I think, for this long.
Yeah, exactly. And apart from the IGA, if you think about it, there isn't really another supermarket nearby except from Heidelberg, I think. So for them not to have had one for this long, it's really a good feat.
Kat, we have council elections now approaching in October. Do we know if this zoning issue will play any part in the council, any of the councillors' campaigns or any of the people running for council?
We're not too sure yet. The matter's still being heard at VCAT. I would imagine, though, that it would be brought up if VCAT respond in time.
Well, I think we just need one person out there to take the issue and run with it for council, and they might be onto a vote winner.
Hopefully.
If they have
Hopefully
a petition of almost 1,000 signatures, surely that is, a pretty good sign that they can get some supporters on board with this issue.
Yeah, definitely.
And we had a final story from
Yeah,
Nathan,
the most
Rachel?
recent piece by Nathan Oakley, inspiration or copywriting, are designers being ripped off. I think this is a really important piece. Obviously, independent designers are always doing it tough. It is pretty hard to be a starving artist. And apparently brands like Gorman have been ripping off independent designers. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so a group of artists have noticed that Gorman has been sort of copying their designs, and they don't really know what to do about it. Taking legal action against an Australian company like Gorman would obviously be really massive and a massive undertaking, but they just kind of want it to be known that these are their designs, and it's not like imitation, and imitation is a form of flattery. It's almost blatant copying.
Absolutely. Who was it? It was the European Union were thinking about extending design copyright from 25 to 70 years after the artist's death.
Yes.
Do you know if Australia has any plans to go ahead and do that too?
None as far as we know so far. It would be great if we did. It would protect a lot of artists. And a lot of artists who obviously aren't making as much money as Gorman. So that has to come into it
We should
as well.
clarify too that the allegations against Gorman are alleged.
Yes,
We're not
they
saying
are.
that it's true or anything.
No.
So just doing the legal ticks and...
Yes, the alleged copying.
I suppose with the advent of the internet, if you are a designer, you'd constantly be online and you'd constantly be scrolling and you'll see like millions of images like over a year, and then I guess like maybe it'll get muddled up in your brain and it would be hard to be like, oh, where did I get inspiration for that? Where did that come from?
Especially with social media, throwing out so many images, it's so hard to keep track of where things are coming from, where you've seen things, and you might completely forget that you've seen this design or pattern somewhere.
Until it pops up again.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us, Kat. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
And coming up, I think we have Sam Martin and his section, Choose the News.
It's a new section coming up, isn't it? So we're looking forward to hearing from Sam.
It is. I think we'll be talking about male suicide and the hashtag It's Okay to Talk, which I think is a really important issue. So I'm glad we're doing it. It is 34 minutes past 2. And just on the topic of Upstart, you can check out all our highlights. They will be on the Upstart website, upstart.net, later on this afternoon. And hi, Sam.
Guys, how are we?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Basically, just going to go through the hashtags of the week coming up. Basically, for this segment, we're kind of looking at poking and prodding fun of viral hashtags that have been going around recently. But I thought to start things off, it's a bit of an issue that's too serious to neglect, and it's pretty much gone viral this week. And the hashtag I'm referring to is It's Okay to Talk. You've probably seen it by now, sprawled all over Facebook, Twitter, and the likes. And the reason that it's done is basically revolving around depression and suicide rates in men. It revolves around breaking the stigma surrounding depression in an effort to let it be known that it's okay to talk about mental health issues amongst fellow Australian men. I think that as a whole, in 2016, we've got a good grasp of mental health and the serious nature of it. But until we have these sort of phenomenons and viral activities break out, it's kind of, and you hear the confronting personal stories, it's when you realise that this really needs to be probably addressed more and more so forth. Basically, the initiative was launched by a man called Luke Ambler in the United Kingdom. He was hit pretty close to home in his family. He actually had the suicide of his brother-in-law, Andy. since that tragedy occurred to Luke, he's launched a group called Andy's Man Club. And it's a place basically which is safe for men to open up and talk about the issues they're facing. What it basically involves is posting a piece on Facebook, letting men know that they aren't alone. The post will, generally speaking, signal some sort of hand gesture to signal that it's okay. Most people will nominate about up to 5 people. They will be saying in it, it's okay to talk, to speak to people, you're not alone. And to really just break down that stigma, as I said, because it really is an issue at the moment.
It's so important, isn't it? Because as men, you know, we sometimes don't talk about our feelings with each other. It's kind of seen as it's a bit soft to talk about your feelings. It's a bit soft to have a bit of a heart, to have a bit of a cry, you know, and it's really pressurizes and confines people to acting a certain way and not being able to express themselves and leading to unhealthy outcomes like this.
Completely right. I think if you look back to it, you hear so many people, or more so older people, speak about how back in the 30, 40 years ago, speaking about depression or mental health issues would be relatively unheard of. There'd be nothing of the like. As you said, for men, I think there's this stigma attached to depression or mental health that it's a sign of weakness. And I think certainly over the last 10 or so years, 15 so years...
There's been so much improvement, hasn't there? But we've still
100%.
Got so much further to go.
It really is. There's some pretty startling stats, actually, that I just want to read out in a second. 41% of men who have contemplated suicide feel as if they can't talk about their feelings. And that's just really pretty alarming when you think about it. And also, furthermore to that, the single biggest killer of men under 45 years of age is suicide. And you can just see how the correlation there between not being able to talk about your feelings and the suicide rates. It's clearly need to be addressed, and until it's not, then there could be more issues, and it needs to be addressed more, I think. In terms of numerous names, there's been a few big names getting on board. Ricky Gervais and Quade Cooper, as such, have posted on Twitter, Facebook and the like of the hand signal it's okay, as well as their post saying why it needs to be broken down, the stigma, and why it's okay to talk to friends or family about it. It was easy to see as well, just on Luke, the man who created this whole initiative, you could easily see how much and how strongly it touched people. Luke said himself that a man even messaged him saying that he was on the brink of suicide before the initiative was launched. And I've seen numerous men, one of my personal friends who has asked not to be named also said how he had his own personal triumphs with defeating depression about 2 or 3 years ago, how he was at rock bottom, and basically promoting this initiative and saying how it's so important to spread the message that it's okay to speak to people. The trend's been nothing short of inspiring, I think, to a lot of people. I think that case of being so close to a suicide or at rock bottom feeling and then seeing this initiative, I reckon that'd be so much more common than we even think. And I think, generally speaking, with hashtags and the like of these natures, you wouldn't see them lasting in popularity for more than 2 to 3 weeks as such.
Yeah.
But even then, you can already see it's making a clear difference. So that in itself is a success in its own respect.
I'm very glad your friend got over it. But do you know what he did? Do you know if he got any particular help, or do you know if he spoke to a professional? Or
he did speak to a professional, and that's what he told me. And I'd pretty much urge all listeners out there to do the same thing. There's a lot of many different recommendations for depression sufferers. It's a commonly held term as well. It doesn't discriminate. So you see so many like sportsmen and such have mental health issues.
Of course, famously Wayne Schwartz, who was a famous AFL player, Nathan Thompson, a lot of ex-AFL players have now come out and feeling they can openly speak about it, where 10, 15, 20 years ago when they were playing, they couldn't talk about it.
Well, that's the thing. And you hear a lot of ignorant comments from the public saying things such as, you know, he's a sportsman, he's on $1 million contract, how could he suffer from depression and stuff like that? And as I said, depression doesn't discriminate, no matter your background or your class, your financial income. And so it really can hit you anytime, anywhere, I guess.
Yeah, and we should say if anyone needs any help, they can easily go to their doctor. There's mental health plans which you can speak to your doctor about and get free access to psychologist or
There are.
counsellor.
Mhm. There are.
And for anyone else too who is listening and might be suffering, we should let you know that there is a lifeline, which is the number is 13 11 14. Please don't be hesitant at all to contact them and speak to the professionals there. They do an excellent job and well worth contacting if you're feeling in any way down about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, like, just go to a GP and get a mental health plan and, get some help because you deserve it.
Completely agree.
There we go. Thanks so much, Sam, for coming in and talking to us about this very important subject.
No worries, guys.
We
Thanks
are
for having me.
listening, not a problem, mate. We are listening to Upstart Live. It's 19 minutes to 3, and we broadcast live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we can also find our highlights on upstart.net.au. I'm your host, Naim Kurt, and this is...
Rachel Roberts is me. And coming up, we're going to have Morgan and Josh with all the sports. So stay with us. Hello, Morgan and Josh.
Hello, how are we?
We're good. How are you?
Good, I'm very good.
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Now, what's the name of the segment coming up now?
Hit or miss?
And how'd you come up with that name?
Josh, that was your doing?
Well, we had plans to bring in a little funny clip and a great achievement of the week in a hit or miss segment, but unfortunately with the Olympics, there's so much going on, we've just decided to name the whole segment Hit or Miss.
Fantastic. How have my boys North Melbourne been going?
North Melbourne. Not fantastic.
Not fantastic. We won the first 10 games. We've lost the rest of the games.
Yeah.
Are we going to make the finals?
That's debatable.
That's debatable.
We'll see. We'll see how you go. But yeah, so in AFL, one of the biggest stories was probably the Pride game that was played on Saturday night between Sydney and St Kilda.
Yeah, look, I think really big steps forward for the AFL, acknowledging and welcoming gay and lesbian players into the league.
Yep.
Obviously, as we've just spoken about with mental health, there's often a stigma around these individuals and the community that they come from. So to have a game and hopefully next year maybe a full round dedicated to that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, yeah.
I think it's a good step forward for the league.
Yes, and sport-wise, Sydney got up, didn't they? Did quite well.
Yeah, it was pretty even at half-time, but the Swans kicked away in the second half thanks to mainly Buddy Franklin. He kicked 6 goals, 1, and had 28 disposals, which is a pretty good effort from the big fella.
It's a huge effort from the big fella. We have Geelong and Richmond making a huge comeback. I think we have some visuals there for that.
That's what we're going to do. They're going to run by hand. They've lost their run through the middle, and Geelong just keep running by hand, just like they did right here.
Smith to Dangerfield. He attacks the goal square. Henderson there. Bouncing football over the back. Motlop. Hawkins. Goal!
Fairy tale win for the Tigers, but unfortunately a big last quarter from the Cats.
Huge last quarter.
Snuffed out any chance of that.
Yeah, whether they'll make the grand final or not.
Well, I think they're still a good chance. They're in a good position.
Yeah, they are.
If they can finish top 4, they're every opportunity.
Yeah. Now on to the rugby, NRL. Had some good games there. Dragons beat the Sharks in what you could call an upset.
Yeah, certainly. The second place Sharks, that's a stumble for them. They can't afford too many more of those with the finals coming up.
Yeah.
And the Titans, Jared Haynes' new love club, the Titans, had a big win over the Tigers.
They sure did.
He kicked the golden point, and that was a pretty impressive match.
Bit of controversy that came out of that as well. Brisbane veteran Corey Parker had some criticisms with the review committee.
Decisions are made based on what I was led to believe the severity of the tackle. Now he's broken his jaw, regardless on how it's happened. He's hit him with a closed fist, swinging arm that's since broke his jaw, and he takes 1 week. So. I guess you just want to see consistency.
It was a pretty crude hit from Ryan James there, taking out the fullback James Tedesco.
It was, broke his jaw.
So to only get 1 week, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, I think he should have got more, but, I guess they looked at the issue and they thought, wasn't too bad, I guess.
Well, I know that Ryan James will certainly be counting his lucky stars after that one.
Absolutely. EPL, some huge problems with the coverage there. Optus has now gained ownership of the EPL for Australian fans, and lots of reported issues there.
As we've seen with Channel 7's coverage of the Olympics, if you have exclusive rights, you have a big responsibility to make a good job of it. Unfortunately,
You sure do.
Optus at this stage have left many fans underwhelmed.
They have.
And it was a good opening week of the EPL too.
Was, yep. Hull City got over the favourites, the winners, Leicester,
Yeah,
2-0.
Last year's champions, going down in their opening match.
Yeah, and check out this Hull City goal.
The champions have fallen behind. Well, Kasper Schmeichel, I think this time is guilty of a careless throw. He was trying to get his team on the front foot, and in the end, once it's dealt with by Simpson coming across, it's just hit his body and it's fallen.
Just a cracking strike from Robert Snodgrass, the former Leeds United man. So I'm happy to see him doing well while Leeds are down in the second division. I'm glad that he's up there scoring goals against the reigning champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the goal before that, sweet bicycle into the top left, I think.
Yeah, very impressive goal, that one.
It was very impressive. Man United proved too good for Bournemouth.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic, do we need to say anything more?
I don't think we do, no. He was fantastic, as he always is. Liverpool upset Arsenal.
Yeah, that was
3-4.
A real goal fest.
It was, yeah.
Everyone likes to see games like these, even though the coach or the managers won't be too impressed. Both sides conceding stacks of goals.
Yeah, Arsenal fought back, but in the end, couldn't get the job done. And Chelsea beat West Ham last night.
Yeah, just the final game of the round. Diego Costa in the 89th minute followed up Eden Hazard's penalty and took out a 2-1 win over West Ham.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. And cricket, 3 days of play. Australia's looking okay now against Sri Lanka.
Yeah, the fourth day's just commenced. Sri Lanka are 1 for 29, so they now lead by 2 runs over Australia. But it was great to see finally some Aussie batsmen making some runs. Steve Smith got 119 and Sean Marsh got his second Test 100 in Sri Lanka with 130. So good to see him back in the side and making runs, and maybe we're a chance to snag this test.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah, don't jinx it. Yeah, it's been fantastic to see them.
Yeah, I mean, and Mitchell Stark as well, his bowling. He's second on the all-time list of pacemen to take wickets in a Sri Lankan series. So that's great to see. He's doing unbelievably well in very tough conditions.
Yep, and that's it for sports.
That's a lot, guys. Thanks for that. Thanks to Josh and Morgan. That's very comprehensive coverage there of everything going on in the world of sport. It is now 12 minutes to 3, and my name's Rachel Roberts, and this is I am Kurt.
Yes.
And here we are on Upstart Live, broadcasting every Tuesday at 2. And coming up, are going to have all your pop culture needs, and we'll have Georgie and our sound man Jake talking about all sorts of movies and particularly the Suicide Squad.
In the cut segment, they're calling it.
In the cut segment. Yes. So, again, if you ever want to relive all of our fun here at Upstart, just check us out on the website, upstart.net.au, and you can find all our highlights there. We're going to sleep.
Welcome back, guys. Today, Georgie and I are going to be talking about
Not so much Suicide Squad as so much more the backlash that came out around it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first trailer to Suicide Squad came out about 12 months ago on YouTube. So the hype has been quite significant, with a very appealing cast. We've got Will Smith, we have Margot Robbie, supermodel Cara Delevingne has even been chucked in the mix. So people, especially DC comic fans, have been frothing over the release of this movie.
They definitely used a lot of interesting soundtrack choices to kind of promote it.
Yeah, well, the first trailer from memory was it was a Bee Gees cover of I Started a Joke, and it was this eerie kind of blood-curdling, obviously relating to the Joker being played by Jared Leto. And then we had Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, and now we have 21 Pilots, Heathens. So it's been, that alone has been pretty captivating.
Yeah, there's quite a few. And it's kind of funny now that it's come out and, people were kind of expecting it to do a little better. But following the trend with Batman vs Superman and all that, it seems that DC fans aren't too happy with the way Rotten Tomatoes are kind of rating their films, even though Rotten Tomatoes have absolutely nothing to do with the rating. They just kind of put every critic's thing on a scale and it just works it out on a meter.
Exactly, they're the messenger and everyone's shooting them basically.
Yeah, but it's more interesting the fact that Rotten Tomatoes is part owned by Warner Brothers anyway. So it's
in their best interest for the movie to rate well. The fact that now fans, they're starting a petition, aren't they, to get it closed down, because currently it sits at a 27% rating.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, likewise, I don't think either, because they rate it on a spectrum, so from fresh to rotten, and 27%, it's decomposing before our eyes, basically.
Yeah, but that being said, there is one fan who's quite upset. Do you know much about this?
Yeah, from what I believe, he's a Scottish guy, and he said to have driven 300 miles or something, to London, to see the premiere, only to be greatly disappointed at the lack of scenes that include
otherwise. But apparently he said his brother's a lawyer and it's going to happen. But yeah, it's funny when you get into things about things not being in a trailer, and then you get a lot of people who get upset when a movie's got too much footage in the trailer, and then they go and see the movie. They're like, well, I've basically already seen it.
Oh yeah, and sometimes I don't know about you, but I find the best bit of a movie is sometimes the trailer, because they want to engage people. Of course, they're going to use the most captivating images, the best scenes. When I go to the cinema, I always make sure I go to see the trailers, because sometimes if it's a dodgy movie, at least you know what's coming up and you can get excited about it.
And sometimes you don't even need to go and see the movie, because you've basically got the whole thing from that trailer.
Yeah, well, the Ab Fab movie, for example, in my opinion, a bit dodgy, and I'm a fan of the TV show, but because they showed it was a pretty lengthy trailer as well, and they showed every good scene in it, basically. All it kind of reminds me of is that movie Funny People, that Adam Sandler film that came out, and the trailer literally showed every turning point in that movie. And then you just went to see a 3-hour version of a 2-minute trailer.
It must be hard for film companies to keep people happy, because you've got like I was just saying, with how you've got people who are upset that something wasn't in there, but then when you're dealing with something as iconic as the Joker and you're putting it in the trailer, people are kind of going just to kind of see that character.
Exactly. And speaking as someone who isn't a comic, like a diehard comic book fan, the Joker is relatable. The Joker, the character, has been played by the likes of Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger. I am actually yet to see Suicide Squad, but one of the reasons I would go and see it is because I've heard rave reviews about Jared Leto's performance, and even though there might be a few scenes, he's the one kind of tangible and largely accessible character.
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to the niche group, or not niche. I know there's a huge, massive comic fans.
And only just recently, it happened this weekend, but an ex-Warner Brothers employee had released a letter basically slamming the head of Warner Brothers about all the bad decisions that they've made and how Wonder Woman's going to turn out to be a mess.
Right.
And that they're just hiding behind a really good trailer.
Yeah, and also there are lots of comparisons going on between DC and Marvel, and I think, it's hard. They're really popular films, and I think because there is such a huge following of comic book fans, the critics' opinions sometimes pale in comparison, because if you've got a large enough fan group, like they'll back you and they'll support you.
All right. Next up, we're just going to cut back to our host, Rachel, now.
Thanks for that, guys. I personally haven't seen many comic book movies, but honestly, I might actually go see that thanks to all the controversy and conversations. It is now 5 minutes to 3, and we are going to have Morgan to take us through all the weird and wonderful happenings in the news with her segment that is called What the What. Hi, Morgan. How are you?
Good. How is everyone today?
We're good. So tell us what's been happening.
What the what? The wonderful news of the week. So move on over Tinder. There's a new matchmaker in town. 51-year-old Mark Ellis of West Yorkshire discovered scribbled drawings on the wall of toilets in his local pub. And these were written by a lady's name called Donna Roberts. Her ex wrote them on there. And the message said, if you want a good shag, call Donna on. I won't give away the number. ... So Ellis texted this number and wrote, "Hi, what are you up to?" And then they spoke on the Sun on Saturday. And the love-struck trucker said, "I was curious to know if it was a real human being." And they still laugh about it, apparently. The lady Roberts was first perplexed by how Ellis had actually found her number, but they struck up a conversation and actually met a few days later. Now they have 2 kids, and the kids are unaware of what actually went down.
There we go.
Lovely.
A love story from the toilet. There you go.
Yep, it's beautiful. Better than Twilight. Still a better love story than Twilight.
Also this week, our drone in Britain worth about £1 million by British Army Watchkeeper has crashed at an airport in Wales after the ex-rank officer piloting it disabled the unmanned aerial vehicle's anti-crash systems. So to put that in layman's terms, the drone crashed when they turned it off from anti-crash mode. So there's a bit of irony for everyone to enjoy. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but after the crew had disabled various anti-crash routines, the drone incorrectly sensed its altitude and flopped into the runway of the West Wales airport. Its 4-man crew all agreed that using the manual override was the best way to get it down, but the unforeseen consequences was that it was destroyed.
Oops. And while fears of the Zika virus have kept people away from the Olympics at Rio, residents of one Russian town have found that more mosquitoes are better. So there's a mosquito festival in the town of Berezhniki, and 9-year-old had 43 bites to show off and was awarded the tastiest girl.
Oh, gosh.
Very, very weird.
That is a crazy story, but unfortunately we've almost got to the end of our show. It's been another jam-packed episode. Thank you so much, girls, for coming in and doing the What the What segment.
Not a problem.
We should give a thanks out to all the people who put in stories this week, to everyone out there listening in internet world, and of course thanking Adam and Daniel and Hajar and Phil as well, who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this show a success.
Woo.
And you can tune in next week at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. We'll be going Tuesdays every week at 2 p.m. for the next.
Or if you want to relive this episode, of course, go to upstart.net.au.
There we go.
And that is probably about it. Thanks for your company. My name is Rachel Roberts.
And I'm Naim Kurt. And tune in next week. See ya.